Adam's Friday's Flow forum, and I think this whole name is kind of like, all right, sort of long. But also, I sometimes just call it Friday Flow, and for entrepreneurs, so it's more obvious who it's for. So I think the Adams and the forum can both be dropped, but yeah, I'm working on the branding. There we are. That's how
I
things
think
work.
AF, you just do Sparks AF or AF cubed.
Yep. So
or not.
Friday Flow Sparks, Friday Sparks. Anyway, so today's focus then is, of course, as I'm showing here, is create meaning. So I'm going to see if I can annotate. How's this work? I can do a spotlight. Look at that. All right, so it's like create meaning by reaching out. Can you see my arrow? Or do you only see the red dot?
I see the arrow.
Okay, so the red dot isn't really that much helpful.
Well, I see the red dot with the arrow. Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and now the red dot sort of has a little bit of lag to it sometimes.
Oh, that's
sometimes,
funny.
but not all the time. For the most part.
It doesn't look like it has lag on my end. Just to say,
right.
That's cool. Huh, that's funny. Okay, but I can draw on here and all kinds of things. I'm annotating. All right, so I'm just to do that. So we are recording now, and just so we're on the same page, And the reason for this is so that we can do it like we're gonna be on social pages, so YouTube, and then look up Adam Brechtel, and that's where it's at right now. As I mentioned before recording, I'll probably be updating that so it's something more helpful than just my name. And then, you guys have any more legal advice about like what I should put on this page or talk to people about? Or are we good?
I will just say that I never offer legal advice.
I plead the fifth on that one.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad to be recorded saying that I never offer legal advice.
No, that's good. It's good. It's just like, all right, so just say, this is recorded.
I say suggestion, not legal advice.
Yeah, legal suggestions. Oh, all right. Sounds like I got someone breaking into my room. So hold on a moment. Yes, you are adorable. Okay, I'm back. So that was one of my beautiful daughters, and I guess that's part of the way this all goes. So mouse. Okay. Now how do I delete these things that I marked on here? Undo, right? Undo. There we are. Okay.
I don't even know how you do the stuff on or is that?
So
you're doing screen sharing. Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to share your screen, I'll stop sharing mine, and you try it out.
No. I don't want to try new technology.
Adam, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Are we gonna land mañana when people get in here? How many people do you usually get? I'm assuming more.
Actually,
coming.
It's been anywhere between 1 and 4 so far.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you showed up, I was just happy. And it's pretty much the way I work is like if I have one person to discuss something with, then I feel like I'm actually engaging, as opposed to like if I just like doing my little spiel, it's like
okay.
I feel sort of monotonous. So the fact you guys have shown up has already made it just all worth it for me. So I'm happy. But my goal is to have a great place for people to network, as we were kind of talking about before, talking about your different ideas.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going back to my screen share, and that's the wrong one. This is my timer. I'm not sure why that showed up. I clicked on this guy here. Nope, it went back to this anyway. Oh, did I close that screen?
Tomato timer. I like the way you.
Yeah, isn't that great? That's a great tool. And I'll show you about it a little quick since I've got it up. So in this timer, it can set it for 20 minutes and then I'll start going. You can have a short break and you can have a long break. And this is just like, keep it so you have going. And in settings, you can change the length of the break right here, any of the breaks. And then you can have it, and this is what I have it, you can have it auto like going or not. And I just found out about the settings option like a couple days ago, but I've been using this for a while. And also that I could change the length of time. So Pomodoro comes from an Italian time organizer guy, and he called it a Pomodoro because you know those kitchen timers that are like egg timers.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
apparently there's tomato timers.
Yes, there
So
are.
he would use a tomato timer to do this, and he'd set it for 25 minutes. And Miriam and other organizers have told me though that 20 minutes is really the optimal. So
Okay.
that's basically what I do now. So it was 25 and I wanted to tweak it, and now I know that I could change it to 20 minutes. And there's a short break in there, you know, if you want to go get something done and go back. Or in my case, it's 20 minutes. Oh, and then I have 5 minutes to go ahead and shift gears to the next thing if I decide to do that. If I decide I need to focus on the same thing I'm doing, I keep it on that one. But anyway, this has been a really cool tool. And I've really enjoyed using it. And so now I'm going to close it out. I have this presentation more for the availability, but if we're talking about stuff, that's I'm happy. Somewhere in there, I closed the window that I was sharing.
It probably got minimized.
Yeah.
Or you're sharing. Switch to your sharing screen. If you go back to sharing, it should let you choose.
Yes.
Which one you can share.
Right, but if it's not even on my desktop, then I don't have anything. Oh wait, here it is. Okay.
There you go.
It was on my alternate desktop, so I had to go up to the top of the screen. I pushed the show screens button, and then it brought it back. I've been building this, Eric, since we first met. So I was like, okay, so I'm gonna have my intro. I'm gonna talk about, we're gonna be recording so people know, and then also make a spot for people to do their intros. And I'm thinking about changing this to intro etiquette so that people know, because this is something I'd like us to do with 1 Million Cups too, is have an intro etiquette, so a description every time, because it's a whole new platform for everyone. And even when 1 Million Cups, a lot of people forgot to tell what business they were part of. So I'm gonna have you guys say it verbally, but then I'd also like you to type it on the chat.
Type it in the chat?
Yeah. I'm wondering in the recording if they'll see my mouse. Huh. We'll find out when I see the recording. Because the recording like reformats all this. It like changes, like all three of our faces will be up in the corner or something, unless I just pin this one. So if I pin my face, pin video, then only my face will show up in the corner on the video. Oh, look at that. But I could change, oh, if there's all three of us showing. Okay, cool. All right.
Excellent. Hi, my name is Renz-Whitmore. I work, I'm the director of U-Ship Communities for an organization called Forward Cities. And let's see, what you do for who? Exactly, yeah. So what we do is we work with cities and communities across the country to help basically help continue to develop their ecosystems. Ecosystems already exist for entrepreneurs, but sometimes an outside view, some additional assistance can help in knitting those communities together, whether it's the entrepreneur service organizations or the many other folks that want to support entrepreneurs. I will put that in the chat. But yeah, it's yeah. So and that's one reason why I'm just interested in seeing some of the conversation here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks, Eric. And Annie?
Okay, Annie Irizari. I am a social and real estate development entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Core Community Housing and organizational consultant. The real estate development I do is in repurposing shipping containers to build communities.
That's a cool idea too.
Right, and so in my past life, I was a project manager in technology, so I'm very much very knowledgeable in the technology arena. I was a software developer for a number of years. I was in finance and accounting and taxation for another decade, right? An engineer, and then became a project manager and a consultant. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
That's cool. Are you going to present on 1 Million Cups at some time?
You know, I tried to ask them if I could present. Apparently the criteria is I need to make at least $1
right.
in my company to be able to present, which is really a shame, because I thought that it would be good to present for people who are early on in their entrepreneurial journey, because there's value in that, I believe. Whether you make $1 or not, I think there's a value in people just starting out. If you're a startup, where are you at in your journey? What are your challenges? The challenges remain the same, in my opinion. You know?
Yeah, well, this is certainly a place you can present, even if you're not have $1, if you don't have $1 earned yet.
right? So at some point, I probably will present it,
Yeah.
1 million cup. At this point, not yet, I guess, is the word I want to say, but.
Yeah. Well,
So,
thanks, guys. Thank you also for putting your stuff on the chat here. How do we contact you guys?
I refuse to share.
You're too busy. You don't have to put it on there. This is just like, because I'm trying to make it sort of like a networking space. If you want to put that on there, you can put it on there. Otherwise, they can find you on Facebook or something. But
well, exactly. I mean, my probably, depending on what it is going on. So and sometimes honestly, it depends on the week. So email, I'm e.whitmore@gmail.com. I'm e.whitmore on a few different platforms, including Twitter and also LinkedIn. So that's probably the place to find me. And little known fact, some people like myself put their contact information in the footers of their emails. So if you've got an email, you've got my phone number, you've got my, you've got the other ways to contact me.
Well,
so,
and the thing, and remember when I was trying to find your phone number earlier, it was because you have it underneath the paste, like the reply stuff.
Oh, and I think that was like some huge, ghastly long email thread. So
and so many times, so I was like, oh, he just doesn't post it, he doesn't put it on there. And because all of my email setups make it so it hides all the reposted stuff, and yours was below that, so it just didn't add it on.
Well, I don't know if I'm frightened or not, but I see Siri or whatever will basically their AI goes through your emails.
Oh.
So if you're looking for a name or looking for a phone number, it actually these days comes up with that information. Wow. I don't know. Probably it seems like more often than not. So.
Wow. Well, then they'll find you. And then you've got Core, Anna, you have corecommunityhousing.com is your place.
Yes.
Cool.
I finally put up a website. I mean, it's a work in progress, of course, but.
Oh, yeah. I just used the Google Business website and used my domain on it.
Right.
So it's a really simple website, but it's there. And if you scroll down,
it's there. I mean, at some point, I'll need to work on it a little bit more. But for now, things are still changing and shifting. As a startup, there's a lot of things that are still shifting right now. So.
Yeah. So talking about shifting, I'm going to shift to this is like the meat of my presentation part or whatever. Anyway, so 2 weeks ago, I planned to present this. And then last time, Anna Fain. Anyway, she's a diabetes specialist, and she joined me last time, and we chatted the whole time about doctors and how they're struggling to use this stuff, and but how the science world is actually sort of become smaller because they can now contact each other a lot more easily because they're all online, and so they get together and they talk about all the science stuff behind what's going on, and so that was really neat. But we didn't get to my presentation, so I'm using the one I set up for last time. The handy thing is I didn't have to create another one. I'm thinking next time I might do gardening. But my main focus was creating meaning by reaching out. And it's really neat because when I was going to be talking about this, there's another person who was on before that, Allison Bets. She's a life insurance lady. And she was talking about, she's coming up with this idea that we can do this reach out package to the EMTs, because there hasn't been much focus on that group apparently, like emergent ambulance folks and the fire department. And so she's been having Zoom meetings during this time with clients and things like that, but maybe she'll join us. But it's also questionable. Maybe after Annie goes, they might pop in, because she often comes towards the end of the hour. So she's got this really neat program idea going on. She emailed you some follow-up, but I haven't read that follow-up yet, Eric.
I don't have I haven't responded yet either. I didn't have, it seemed interesting, but I'm trying to find, I'm not sure if I've got anything valuable to add, but I'll respond and at the very least say that. Yeah,
no, that's good. Because part of these ideas is just working through and seeing what it works. They tell you that brainstorming is not as effective as actually having feedback while you're trying to think things up. So so it's kind of funny. Brainstorming used to be the big thing, but actually now it's like, well, I see what you're doing there, but this is what I'm thinking. So anyway, so creating meaning by reaching out. The reason I got this idea was because I was talking to my father, and he was going to his son's house, which lives nearby him, to drop off some food. You know, they weren't going to make contact, but he was going to do something, you know, for someone else within the boundaries of the interesting situation we are in, which is cool because my name, or Flow, which is one of the things I focus on, is defined by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, or Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, that is flow is finding a challenge or working with a challenge with the skills you have, and they match up, you know, to a certain level. So he's working within the boundaries, and it's actually creating creativity, which is what all of these different parameters we've got going on with the COVID rules and stay-at-home policies and all that stuff. It's actually creating another set of creativity, but it's going to take, it's pretty scary for a lot of people. So my hope for during this is to build up people's skills so they can deal with it better. And one of those is focusing on ways to reach out. So it creates meaning, and it like also helps you avoid things like depression or spinning in circles or spinning off in a direction that's not going to, you know, actually be very useful. So, and meaning will improve your productivity, and then improving behavior by changing your reflection to future potential. Okay, so number 2 kind of follows along with the first one, but improving your behavior by changing your reflection. It bounces off something that was put in Psychology Today 2 weeks ago. And the guy there was talking about this theory that the way we talk about time, it will reflect a lot about our behavior. So if we talk about in the past, if we talk about the past, the present, or the future, and if we talk about it joyfully, or if we talk about it with fear, and those are like, that'll kind of indicate the way we'll also behave. So if challenges come up and we're usually focusing just in the present and fearful about the future, then we probably won't react very well with much foresight. Whereas if we think about the future and we're thinking, oh, there's a possibilities that we could do, then we're more likely to avoid depression and actually move forward and make things happen. So it's a theory, but it's a great way to think about things, is that what kind of words am I using when I'm talking about the future, and I'm talking about positively, or am I really freaked out about the present? And we're all over the board, but what's our usual state? And when we're talking to others, what are we using to, like, you know, put on our persona? So if we're thinking about reaching out, that's a way of looking about the future in a positive way. Here's some different clips. So this pitch-in was something that I think is probably out. It was kind of due last week, or due on Monday, but this was a really cool idea where they were funding ideas that people wanted to help out the community. You would pitch, and then the Innovation Academy would then help fund that, possibly up to $10,000, which was really cool. Looks like there was something that was just done in the chat, but it disappeared before I could catch it. Oh, there we are. Chat. So Eric, you just said,
I'm just basically taking that link and I was throwing it in there just in case.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I wonder if I can't copy it here. Okay, well, all right. Thank you. I can grab the other one, or if you want to type it in there, you can. And I'll throw it in there in a moment. But then the next thing is, so that might be out of date, but it was a really cool thing. And that was the community reaching out with a plan for the future, and then encouraging others to do the same, which I just think was so cool. And of course, it's not very useful at this point, but I don't think anyone missed out because I didn't talk about it last week.
Yeah, can you send that Microsoft Teams link on the chat box?
Yes, yeah. Isn't that cool?
That might be a good thing, right?
Yes, it is. And then you could probably also just search Microsoft free, but I'll definitely put it on the chat. Oh no, he didn't put it up there. Okay.
Right, if it's free for a year, I may take advantage of that for the time being.
Yeah, and then there's this other program called Jitsi Meet, which I heard on Twit, which is a podcast that I've been listening to for a couple of years. And they talked about alternatives to Zoom. And this is an open source program, which I love open source. I think it's a really neat idea. And apparently they also are pretty good at debugging things because people are just constantly working on it. And open source is also talked about in a book called Drive, which focuses on how we respond to things if we have the ability to be creative and create our space in there. And so, but this is like, I heard mixed reviews about it on the podcast and I haven't had a chance to use it myself yet. That it might have only 8 people as opposed to, like, you know, Zoom can have thousands if you really wanted, if you pay for it. I'm not sure if it's Jitsi or Jitsi Meet that only can have 8, because there's 2. There's Jitsi and there's Jitsi Meet. So I'll look more further than that, but those are the things to look into. So I'll end this presentation here. There's my contact information, and then I'll post those on the website. Yeah. So we were talking about, so have you used any of those?
No, I've not used Microsoft or Jitsi. It's the first time I'm hearing it, but thank you for the information.
Yeah, let me pull up my page here, and I'll pull it off of that document.
Is there a limit to Microsoft Teams? Is there a time limit or participant number limits on that one, or no?
I'm also inexperienced in it, but
okay.
Basically what they said on Twit is the main presenter guy, he says, when I give people advice, I say, you never get fired for using Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been their strength. Their big thing has been, to, focus on security. So even though Google has kind of got the, there you go. And there's both of the links are in that post. Hope it's not too confusing in there. But yeah, so the Microsoft, it was slow to the co-working space online, and Google had was able to leap way in front of them. But that's also because Google kind of like uses your data differently, and it's free, and they're less focused on your security. So if you're not too concerned about security, then Google is really handy to use. But
well, definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah. But Microsoft obviously is their big focus is on security because their focus is on big businesses or businesses that that's a prime thing. And then Jitsi is a different animal. So because it's open source, so but the cool thing about it is, as opposed to Zoom, is it's encrypted from the beginning to the end because of the way it's set up. And I don't know how that works, but on Zoom, there's a server out there somewhere where Zoom has to tap into your recording. And so it's not totally encrypted the whole way through. And maybe that's changed since their updates, but that was the case back then.
Yeah, Jitsi might be a Linux platform because Linux is very open source.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Yep. I'm playing with that. I'm playing around with that and configuring systems that are Linux-based, open source, just to play with it.
Yeah. And then also the page that I send you to on the Jitsi thing is alternatives to. So if you're looking for alternatives to any particular program, that's a website that you can find some other options if you're trying to discern that out. Which brings us back to the tech thing. So Eric, you said you started a couple tech companies or tech conversation. Is this online connections or is this before COVID?
Way before COVID. So wait, I'm looking at all the links and stuff in the chat. So let's see, I was working at University of New Mexico and also the New Mexico Tech Council. And as part of both those organizations, part of what we were doing was just sort of looking for potential critical mass and starting discussions and sometimes turning those into groups. So, for instance, there was a game developers thing that we launched at 1 Million Cups, or not 1 Million Cups, that was a long time ago, before 1 Million Cups.
Wow.
But just a lot of groups that we started, and part of that is looking for whatever platform, whether it's an existing national or international platform. We did with game developers, there's a group called International Game Developers Association, so we became a chapter of that. With other tech and media types groups, sometimes we started our own thing, or we looked around for something else that would be, an easy way to bring the group together. But that was, most of that kind of stuff wasn't really, the tech tools themselves weren't all that important to how that all started. But I'm always glad to talk about starting groups and whether you maybe shouldn't do that.
Well, I appreciate you supporting me on getting this one going, because from my understanding, the few people that I got that were like not friends of mine who came because of your posts or Miriam's, I'm not sure which, but the first
Some
one.
jerk.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, so New Mexico Game Developers is still going, you say? Do you know? And they're probably doing live.
Yeah. So a brief catch up on that. So I started like the local IGDA chapter, and that basically that sort of zombified maybe a few years ago, and a few years ago maybe that's even 5. So what happened was, let's see. And out of the ashes, Phoenix-like, a handful of folks, let's see, Ryan Leonsky, yeah, just a small group of folks said, I just want to spend time with other game developers.
Yeah.
So what we were doing for a little while was we were just meeting on a weekly basis. And some of the folks like me who had helped start this effort, we moved on to other things and jobs and whatever, but they kept meeting, and that turned into, it eventually started bringing in more and more game developers. So what we initially started was kind of more of like a game business association kind of group. Yeah. And what it became was, or what arose out of the ashes of that, was a really tight-knit group of primarily indie game developers. Some of whom have small companies, and that's still going on. I think it's ABQGames.com is where it's at now.
And one of them presented on 1 Million Cups, right?
Yeah, Ryan and boy, I'm doing terrible with names. I need more coffee this morning. I'm spacing on her name. Yeah, we had one of the early versions of that company joined us, but I'll find a link to what it is they're doing now, because they are meeting. I want to say still, I'm not sure in the age of COVID if they're still meeting on a weekly basis. They were. I believe they're still doing it. At the very least, they're doing some kind of monthly thing online.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Annie. It's good to see you.
Ciao. Good to see you guys.
All right. So, and Annie and I were talking beforehand about like during this time, because her and I sort of work in similar spaces. She's a project manager focus if she's not working on her own product. And I'm working on like trying to help people make their business time flow and enjoy that sort of thing. And she's like, well, a good time to probably move to right now is shifting into like sort of tech support, sort of helping people create their tech world during and after this, because things might change so much. Like for myself, like I enjoy doing things on the computer and like doing all this stuff, but I was avoiding doing that because I felt like being in person was going to be much more important. And suddenly the technology sort of jumped in our face. Like, this is how you're going to communicate. This is how you're going to network.
Yeah, that's true. And, in some ways it's a little bit of a, privilege or, lucky that, some folks have got tech skills and access and other folks don't. I do want to mention Shandine. She's the partner in that company. I think game developers that joined us at 1 Million Cups. I think we've had about maybe 3 different game companies that have joined, local game developer companies that have joined us at 1 Million Cups over the years. But I think Ryan and Shandine are the only like repeat folks, if I recall.
Yeah. So are there other tech companies, or is that just like the one that you can think of?
Yeah, so definitely not a tech company. So all like tech organizations helped start a thing called New Mexico Post Alliance. So that basically grew out of, as we do more film development work, and this is, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, I'm not quite sure. As we do more film production and television production in New Mexico, one of the ongoing challenges is if all of the post-production work for that happens in LA, then there's less opportunity for some of our more, for some of our people and some of our great talent and some of our companies.
Yeah.
So what we were working on was making sure that production companies were aware that there was some really great post talent here.
Yeah.
And, I want to say that organization probably lasted a good 5-7 years, but with the previous administration, there was a couple of years of real uncertainty where the state was saying that we were maybe going to do away with the film credits and other kinds of stuff like that. That changed pretty quickly. I think there was about a year where the messaging was that New Mexico was not super film friendly, but a year that really was a real problem for many folks in the industry. Now, I mean, I don't think the film industry has ever been better in New Mexico than it is today. And there's still some of those companies and many of those people are still involved. But one of the things with some organizations that are mostly volunteer is when everybody gets busy, sometimes you're not necessarily feeding the organization. So I forget when that went away. I've been off the board for maybe a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, is that, and those are like the 2 that you know of? Because I've seen like you have a list of like you're involved in this and this and this and this.
Yeah, I don't want to go through a list of the various things that I either started or grew or.
Oh, well, I'm curious about what's out there now for people to like network with, especially online, like this, basically other meetings or events. If you happen to think of any that are going on.
I mean, the ones that there's a handful that are, I'd sort of peers or sort of related to what we're doing with 1 Million Cups. And 1 Million Cups was similar kind of situation where.
Yeah, tell me about that one, because I get to be one of the organizers because you asked me to be, but which is great. But it's also good to talk about it here.
Yeah, sure. So part of either the way my brain works or the positions that I've had is kind of always on the lookout for what kind of activities are taking place in other communities that we might be able to apply here. And sometimes that's, doing the same thing, becoming part of that network or part of that organization. Sometimes it's, are there folks that might be able to replicate that? So there's a little bit of thinking that goes into that. But one of the things that I saw, well, I'll mention 2 things. So one of the things that I saw being pretty powerful in a lot of communities and particularly effective in bringing people together. Hi.
Here's Allison.
So I'll do the little spiel on 1 Million Cups and then we can talk more. But so
hi, Allison.
Hello, Allison. We've been in touch on email, and we were talking about responding earlier.
Yeah, let me finish with what Eric is saying, and then we'll shift the conversation.
So pretty quickly, a couple of us, it was me and I'm doing terribly with names today, but Bon Macy up in Santa Fe. We were looking for things that might help bring together our entrepreneurial community, and saw 1 Million Cups be effective in a few different places. So we started having some conversations with Kauffman Foundation, who developed this thing called 1 Million Cups, about doing it here. Around that same time, and I think where we'd arrived was we weren't sure if we were going to be able to sustain this having 2 presenters on a weekly basis.
Right.
So Bon, who's based up in Santa Fe, I'm based in Albuquerque. We were thinking about, is there some way where maybe we could just kind of bounce back and forth on a regular basis? And so that conversation was not stalled, but it wasn't a top priority. At the same time, this was in the Berry administration for City of Albuquerque. Mayor Berry, I think toward the end of his first term, visited Kansas City and visited Kaufman and was kind of looking and seeing, what kind of resources they might have, what suggestions that they have for City of Albuquerque. And one of the things that he and his team came back with was, we got to do 1 million cups. So I think I saw it was Gary Alpadal, who was fairly new. I think he was just starting as economic development director for City of Albuquerque.
Yeah.
He'd mentioned something about we're starting Women Cups, and I said, hey, I've been talking to those guys. What are your plans? What are you thinking? And he's like, well, if you want to help organize that, go forth and do good things. So, and basically just kind of looked around for a handful of folks that were involved in the community and wanted to do some stuff, and formed a team, met for maybe 2 or 3 months, and launched. We were the 50th city that became part of the Women Cups enterprise, and I think it's been valuable. It's probably, I think we're going on 5 years. It's all a little bit of a blur these days, but
yeah,
it's gone through maybe 4 or so different sort of lead organizer type folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like it's sustaining itself reasonably well, thanks to folks like you and thanks to people who participate.
Thanks. Yeah, and Allison's going to present someday. She's been talking about it for a couple months now. So, I really appreciated having 1 million cups as an environment. It fostered my sense, because before that, I just thought like, all right, I have to go out in this world of sharks and try and give myself like some sort of sense, people sense that like I'm able to be trusted and it's, I want good for you. And, and then I was able to meet people like you and Miriam, who's also an organizer, and find out about like groups that are like, they have more of a different mentality about business. And there are still people that are kind of like, always profit no matter what you do to the competition. But I found like, for instance, in my field of organizers, that there's a lot of a sense of bounty, abundance. That's the key word, is abundance.
Yes.
Because then you can like say, oh, there's plenty of work out there. You just got to find how they fit your particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and I wouldn't have even met those people or really known those people, at least not as quickly, if I didn't have a 1 million cups like culture in many senses of the word. And so I think it's great. And I'm glad that we're trying to continue that online now, because that's really how we're going to be able to find our ideal clients or our ideal people to work with as like partners and, or other services that we want. Because like, I don't want to do everything myself, but I also don't want to be part of a big corporation yet.
Yep.
So cool. So Allison, you, we talked earlier about reaching out and how using our business to reach out can actually help create meaning in the business and do something more for what we're actually doing. So we have a sense of meaning, but also so we can do something within the confines of the structure that COVID has given us.
Right.
So
right.
creativity within limits.
Right.
So what's going on with your idea there? Have you let it go, or are you still charging forward? Because I didn't hear from you last week, and I was like, oh darn.
My gosh, I know.
Yeah.
The business kind of got way out of hand, and I was like, I was like, crap, what do I do first? So
yeah.
Sorry for the disappearing act, but yeah, I wanted to make sure I replied back, and no, that is still something that I want to move forward.
Good.
Because I think that there's a couple things that we can accomplish. One is positioning ourselves as leaders within the community, right? And being more like a beacon of light in a dark time, right? So here we are. We're going to go out. We're going to help in whatever way we can. Here's something that we can do. And by tying it to business and not just a kindness act, like, that is some way that we can move our businesses forward through COVID-19 lockdown into the future and leaders on the other side.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my thought. And then by doing this, it's a giving back and an acknowledgement of like who's really taking the risks for us all. By specifically honing in on EMTs, because I think like I talked with fire stations. They're small. They don't need a ton. And what they really wanted were meals, which I think if one business wanted, we could do it like a two-parter. If one business wanted to adopt a fire station and do, like, you could drop off a meal with your brochure in it, like one for every person. Because most fire stations have 6-7 people in them.
Yeah. And how many?
Huh?
How many fire stations are there again?
I just called like 2 or 3 of them. But there were there's a ton of them. There's like 12, 15, just in the small map area I was looking in.
Oh,
but I called my local ones.
Okay.
And then when I got a hold of the EMT, the ambulance services, they were much larger operations. And even though they would like a meal, I thought anything's going to be diluted. Any individual business impact is going to be diluted, just because it's going to be commingled with everybody else's. So
so if we were doing it our own, it wouldn't be as impactful, is what you're saying.
Correct. I mean, if we all like pooled money together to feed the ambulance service, like the logistics of that would be a little difficult because only 35 of their 135 people are on in one day. And, making it to get to everyone would be logistically a lot more than I was willing to take on. And so I thought, well, how could we streamline it? And so one of the other things I asked them is like, okay, aside from a meal, what would you guys appreciate? And I said, what if we were able to, give you guys coupons or things? Like I could do a financial one-on-one official pulsing. Are you in good shape with the market crash? Like what? And the guy was like, listen, he goes, I'm 44. He goes, I would love to have that. He goes, but I have some single moms here who would love a massage, like they're working their butts off and they would just like a little pampering. So I thought, wow, that would be great. Somebody's a massage therapist. They could donate. If somebody had another service that could be done in the meantime, like Adam has a coaching business, he could do that now remotely. So there's like now things and later things, like a massage would be for afterwards. But if we like did a template for what the vendors would look for, all form and size, they'd all have each person's logo separately and the business and what it could be redeemed for. I don't, but heck, if somebody wanted to share the vouchers, if 18 people wanted coaching sessions, I'm sure you'd be okay with getting 18 new clients, you know what I mean? Even for
there's an interesting trade-off of like, what free turns into like actual like clients in the end, but at the same time, there's it's something I can give that I want to, to people that I think have done something great. So it's and it does promote more knowledge about what I get to do. So it's a way of getting the word out there also. So but then there's also you could just do a 20% off thing, like for instance. And that's also definitely in there.
Right. Well, you could do like a 15-minute free intro and then 20% off if they do a subscription or something, like.
Yeah. So Eric.
So I've thrown a couple of things in there. So I appreciate thanks for sharing your process in this. What I threw in the chat is I did like a blog post maybe a week and a half ago that what I tried to do was gather a handful of different places around the country that had done a community response. And especially the ones that basically shared their process.
Okay.
So there's some good stuff about how folks did like a meal program for hospital workers or something else. So
Right.
I like that this, I mean, in some ways it's complementary. It's also like recognizing, that, you may not have the capacity to do this whole new, you've got a business that you want to continue to grow versus becoming full-time on
Right.
this other thing. So I like that approach. What I don't know, I'm wondering if looking through some of the processes that other folks have used around the country might be helpful. I don't know. So that's one thought. The other one is that this also reminds me, and I've actually participated in this a little bit, but I've not followed through. I'm not sure if it's statewide or Santa Fe area, but the folks at Simply Media have teamed up, I want to say, with Delicious New Mexico and maybe the Restaurant Association.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a thing where and what they did was they married like a social media campaign with buying gift certificates from existing restaurants that when the restaurant opens back up, you'll use it. So it's sort of banking some meals in the future. Not that that's the thing that you're trying to achieve, but they had more of there was some benefit wrapped into that around the social media aspect of this.
Okay.
And I think that's the piece that, like, if whether it's you or somebody else, if you're including someone that actually pumps up the social media aspect of this, that says, I'm company X and I bought massages for all the people at this EMT group. Making
You mean
sure
like an ad spot that they're posting?
Well, I'm all, well, a lot of what I do is sort of low, no, we don't necessarily have a budget. So I'm using, how do we leverage social media and that angle of the story? If there's some money to do more, paid promotion, that's of course great. But I'm wondering, kind of like for the early stages of this, that virtuous cycle of company X does a good thing for this other organization, and they're tagging it in a way where that helps people be aware of what you're doing, so that they can get more involved.
Right.
It's kind of getting those different loops together.
Well, to answer to that piece, so what I was imagining that would kick in at the point of time that would kick in would be at the presentation. So if we work out all the kinks and I go to this one ambulance company, and then doing either a Facebook Live or maybe a Zoom call, I don't know what, but something that could be recorded, and doing the official presentation, like, here, this is a packet of coupons here or vouchers that we would like to give to you and your people. Like, the one guy that I spoke with, he's the operations manager, so he would handle the internal distribution for us of all this stuff. But we could do like how like when the governor hands over the key to the city to somebody and it's like a big kind of thing. That's what I was imagining, kind of like, here, this is the entrepreneurial community. We want to, and I was hoping to like get the 1 Million Cups brand, if you will, to pump that up for this thing. Like, these are all some of the individual businesses involved in 1 Million Cups. We want to, give back to you guys. We recognize what's, in it. And then each voucher has contact info for everybody. And then anyway, that was when I was imagining it to kick in. Go ahead.
And that's a great picture too. And you're working on branding there. But when you talk about the 1 Million Cups, I might sound like a recording system here, but one of the great ways to get their attention is to present.
Yes, seriously. Yeah.
And one more thing before, because I do want to hear what you're saying, Eric. But I've noticed you switched your headphones, and then you've been like really concerned about whether we can hear you with the microphone.
You're fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Well, maybe, but also I don't know if it switched over to using your headphone system yet, your computer, because Yeah, because I could still kind of hear things in the background. Do you know how to check on that? You go to your...
Well, my roommate walked in and she's on the phone, and
Oh no, that's fine.
That's why
we're living our lives. We've got people in them.
But you know that it has switched over to your headphone system or not?
I can hear you in here. I can't hear you through my computer. So
all right, then I guess. All right. Sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess it does sometimes sound clearer if you hold your microphone up to your face there, but.
Does it sound better?
You're really crisp when you do that, but the look is like, oh.
Boy, I used to be the only person in a room who was doing headphones, and today I'm not. So I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. But to Adam's point, so and I used to do a lot more of the recruiting and talking. I still do. We all do. But what I tell folks is, if they have a thing that they want to promote, so. And I'll just like a second or two on One Million Cups. One Million Cups is really about that. Is that conversation about growing your business. It's the presenting enough information that folks get it, but it's not in any way, shape, or form a sales pitch, right?
Right.
It does have the effect of getting people on your side so they want to promote you. So it is valuable in kind of that, almost PR kind of nature. But when I talk to folks about the timing of when they might do a presentation, what I say is, if you're in the I'm not sure that I'm saying anything wrong here, by the way. But if you're in the shoot, if you're like scheduled to present like in 2 weeks, and then you're going to do this thing on Friday. So next Friday, you're doing this thing, you're presenting the following Wednesday. That empowers me using the 1 Million Cups brand, whether it's on Facebook, which is mostly not me, but Twitter, which is probably slightly more me than anybody else. That enables me to say, hey, we've got a presenter, she's presenting in the next week, but she's doing this really cool thing today that you should check out. Okay. Because you're part of kind of the apparatus.
Gotcha.
And partially because we can't do that for just any business, in New Mexico that's doing good things. While we might like to, it's just not sustainable. Yeah. And it kind of muddies our brand. So the fact that we're kind of referring to somebody who is either a future presenter or a recent presenter, that kind of reinforces what we're doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I get it.
And it builds our community because it shows that we're, especially in this time, but in usual times too, that there's a bunch of people working together, and they're not just, profit first, they're, the benefit as well. And there's something else there. Oh yeah. And also talking about your approach, you're talking about like the one big show, right? That you're going to do one big thingy.
Right. At the presenting to the, the first business, which I mean, we could keep doing it as time goes on.
Right. And I would suggest before.
What do you mean?
Because then you're building up steam as you go. And then at some point, it's like, all right, we got kind of some traction now. Now we'll just use that to leverage it to the next stage.
Gotcha.
And I think it's useful. And I'm going to have to build so I can do like 2 minutes of prep before another call. But but I think it's useful to think of it as, and a lot of it depends on your mindset and how you think of these things. I like sometimes to think of them as campaigns, and I almost think of like a crowdfunding campaign. And I'm thinking about Julia Jones, who is stellar at doing that kind of thing. And one of the things that we talk about, and I did a presentation on this maybe 6 years ago, but one of the things you do is you've got to build kind of your brand and capacity and community so that you're ready to promote what you're doing when you need to. So doing some of those, little bits and pieces now that help, potentially launch the campaign
like this,
that's going to make it so much more effective. So I'm just saying something Adam said just a different way.
Yeah.
More that you're thinking of campaign, and then you've got like big event, and then that could even still be part of this longer campaign. So that helps me kind of like, I've got a date where I'm doing this thing. That means, a week before that, we got to be doing this. So it helps really get that event management calendar in my head.
Gotcha.
That's great. Now, I want to figure out, is there a way I can kick a person out on here? Because then you don't have to somehow, how do I do that?
Do you want to kick me out? I know.
How would I do that?
Doesn't he just leave meeting on his own?
No, he can, but there's like a new setting that I can kick somebody out.
So at the bottom of the screen, you see participants?
Yes, I do.
So in that, you
Mute.
have probably more power than I do.
Move, chat, stop video, stop. Oh, sorry, I'm stopping your
So
video
you
now.
should be able to, yep, you stop my video.
Now,
Perfect.
make
You should be able to
host,
boot me too.
allow record, rename, put in waiting room, remove. Thank you, Eric, for coming. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's good to see you and meet you, Allison.
Nice meeting you.
We'll follow up on email as well if you have any other questions or if any of this has been valuable.
Want to remove Eric Renz-Whitmore. Once removed, Eric Renz-Whitmore will not be allowed to
That's right.
rejoin.
I'm booted forever.
Oh, so I pushed the button and then it asked me again. Like, so it's not like abrupt.
We want to confirm.
All right.
Do you really want to get rid of them? But I'll see you next. I'll probably see. I've got an email that's in draft to you already there, Adam. So
thanks.
We'll be in touch
and
again.
I'll see you later on today, Eric.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so he's really gone now.
Yep.
That was kind of fun to do. And I've
I
got
can hear
someone.
your kids.
Yeah, she's beating down the door so that she can come. Yeah. So you'll notice that I talking about hardware and stuff. I'm not using this. Oh, it actually is working.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought. Okay, so that's really cool because that's the first time I've actually tried it on an actual thing. That's funny, but it has two chords here, and this is the undone chord. So if I can show this in the screen,
yeah, it has two inputs.
Yeah, it has two inputs. So I assumed that I needed to get something to join those together, but apparently it has the right, you know, the different separations.
Connector,
so yeah, one is the input and one is the mic.
Right.
Now
nice.
I feel cool. And did that make it so you couldn't hear the kid in the background more too?
It dulled it a little bit, but it's still, she's got a good voice.
Yes, she does. And she's right on the other side of the door. I was thinking like putting like a big blanket on that door, you know, so that we don't have to deal with that. But also they're joyful. So it's not that big of a deal. But I'm really glad you joined us, Allison.
Me too. I'm glad my other meeting wrapped up because like last time it went straight up to 11 and I was like, for the love of God, people, be quiet.
Yeah. I got other things to do. No, that's all right. You also mentioned Sherry Fox.
Not me.
No. Oh, you're right.
That was me.
All right. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
But the interesting thing is they have massage therapists.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah. So it was the person I talked with last week, Eve Fain. So I could check with her if they might be interested in that sort of thing.
All right.
Email me to remind me about that, and then I'll try and forward that to her.
Okay.
But yeah, so that, because you keep on mentioning massage stuff, I was like, oh, how convenient that we're talking about that. And then it turns out like, oh, wait, actually.
Right.
That's cool. All right. So now, the whole thing now is like me trying to remember how to wrap up this whole story, right? This presentation, because I don't have like a wrap up. You're supposed to end videos with a call to action. They tell you.
Oh, okay.
Where did they tell me this? Oh, it was a YouTube thing. It's like, oh,
well, you already told me to email you, so.
It's a call to action to you. But now it's going to be posted on YouTube. So now I got to figure out how I'm going to have other people like, all right, join me next week as we come to, you know.
Right.
So this is a recording, and I do want people to come and like interact and talk more. So I hope to see them next week. And
I think it's great. Everyone's welcome.
Because and I want to keep the sparks flowing.